What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. This one has been kind of trending for a while. The M4 finally got GA'd yesterday after some drama. I'm gonna recap what happened for you, kind of show you all the things that went down, and then my like 3 to 5 sort of takeaways on this whole thing, sort of wrap it all up. Let's dive in. All right, so basically the genesis of how this all went down, which is honestly the story in itself is just hilarious. Basically, as you see, around yesterday afternoon, Donnie Temp put out a tweet that he then deleted, complaining about sort of too many M4s on the map. I did stream later in the day, sort of after all this news had broken, and Lamar, aka Accuracy, said that they were the team that actually Donnie was scrimming against, and kind of why he sort of lost composure. Because you guys know right now, in a lot of different situations, it's kind of like 8 M4s on the map, sometimes 6. It's pretty much a very heavy AR meta. So at some point after this, SlasheR went to Twitter, kind of adding Don because he saw the deleted tweet. Don then replied that he sort of broke down, lost full, yada, yada, yada. Austin then replied, and he's been pretty consistent about this sort of, what he sees as sort of the hypocrisy of sort of the M4GA and kind of his team and his position on that it really shouldn't be around at this point. It should be gone. Ian, obviously, Enable, as you guys know, King Mr. Seeker, tried to get Austin to go ahead and leak the teams. We've seen a couple people try this over the last few weeks, and mostly at the moment, people haven't necessarily budged and said, like, 100% here are the teams. To which Austin actually replied and sort of threw it out there. Then Dylan Envoy from LA Thieves responds, I guess, you know, again, because after Austin had put out this tweet about the 4 teams, obviously there's a lot of interaction and all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. So Dylan Envoy replies, you know, basically saying that they're also one of the teams that let the M4 in. And then Austin actually backed it up with a screenshot of the rep chat. Now, we've seen these over times, but it's been a while since someone actually just aired out like a screenshot of the rep chat. Envoy's kind of running the vote. I don't believe the blue text is Austin because he said he's not in the rep chat, so it's got to be somebody else on his team, which I think is probably Sim because we see a screenshot later in which Chris votes. So I think he probably got it from his teammate. And yeah, you kind of see how the M4 got kept in here, basically this exchange, whatever day it was a few weeks ago. Anyway, so at some point, kind of along the same time period as this, Insight replied, because he basically said that Toronto wasn't one of these teams. This again backs up that screenshot that I just showed you. And in this point, you know, Envoy responds basically that, oh, you know, FaZe also voted to keep S&D the same. To which, you know, Austin replied, and I think basically saying, hey, Dylan, you know, you kind of missed the point of what I was saying with my original tweet, which is this one, in which he basically says in Austin's mind, right? He sees the sort of hypocrisy of people are saying, I don't want to adjust the meta and remove the M4, but I'm totally down to take smokes and snipes out. He sees those as attached things. Like if you can't, you know, if you're like all in on keeping the M4 in, right? Because you don't want to mix up anything for before Major 1, then why are you voting to take smokes and snipes out? So obviously a lot of hiss going back and forth at that point. More kind of back and forth again. You could scroll on Twitter and on Reddit. A lot of this is sort of broken down. You know, there's a lot of conversation here about smokes and one ways and yada, yada, yada. At this point, like, it's like 8 p.m. at this point, East Coast time. I basically went live like 30 or 40 minutes prior because we got to get in the mix, obviously. And then a few minutes later, we see tweets started to come out, and I'm showing you one from Sam, but you can find a bunch of different tweets from a bunch of different people. That basically this whole kind of 2-3 hour process had resulted in the GA chat meeting and them deciding, let's just finally get rid of the M4. So once again, the sort of Twitter pressure campaign, you know, the both times we've seen it with the snipers last year and this year, and now with the M4 finally comes to fruition, and the M4 has now been GA'd completely from competitive Call of Duty. All right, so a couple of key takeaways with this one. Takeaway number 1, this whole process sucks. I've been on record, I think now, for almost 4, 5, maybe 6 years on this, really since World War II, whenever, how many years ago that was, of, you know, this GA chat drama that all this gets sorted in a Twitter DM just seems like an extremely convoluted process. And again, I kind of understand why it's sort of evolved into this, you know, the original problem of, hey, like the pros really need to try and play a better game. They're trying to figure it out. And the developers and the league is just not going to move fast enough. At that point, by the way, in the beginning of all of this, it was the COD World League. This is back when MLG was running it. And, you know, even they weren't moving fast enough to get these GAs in. So really what we need to pick towards, and I talked about this a lot last night on stream, like we need to drive towards how do we get official edits to the rule set with temporary restrictions, permanent restrictions instead of these gentleman agreements. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. For me personally, I'm going to start kind of seeing where we can move that conversation along and maybe start a transition plan. My second takeaway is I've seen a lot of BS on Twitter. Guys, don't blame the players in this one. Again, going back to the first thing, like they're all trying to make the game that's sort of best and most playable. The problem is that inherently they're all going to be biased to making sure their teams are good. It's just a super messed up process, and I've seen a lot of hate going to like Sam Octane and Zin and all these other people. You know, for Sam, for example, like he's been very clear for a number of weeks now why they voted to keep the M4 in, the reason that they wanted to keep it in before Major 1. They were happy to get rid of it after Major 1. Again, I've seen a lot of hate for players, and just remove that from the conversation for now. I think my last point here, and you know, I was talking about it last night with Octane, we had SlasheR in there, we had Accuracy, we had Attach, we had Parasite, we had Aches, aka Benoit Blanc. There's sort of a key issue with sort of the map design in this game, and sort of how the guns work, how headshot multiplier works. Right now, as the meta kind of stands, it's going to continue to be an AR heavy meta. The SCAR for M4 kind of change makes sense because the M4 is really good at these sort of pre-fire close distances where subs are just getting melted by a better AR, and ideally with the SCAR, which shoots a little bit slower, is going to be a little bit more punishing if you miss those shots, maybe give a little bit more advantage the sub players. But I think, you know, per Sam's note, and I'm curious to see what happens in scrims the next couple of days, it's probably still like 6 scars on the map. And I don't really know fundamentally what we can do to try and get to more of a 2-2 balance. I just think the way the game is sort of built right now, with the headshot multiplier especially, it's going to be really hard to make a meta that you're going to see a lot of 2 subs. Obviously, things could change on a future patch or update, or if people just get more comfortable with the subs or what have you. But at the moment, it's still going to be an AR heavy meta. But I think what we've done now is sort of potentially, and again, we'll see what happens in scrims, avoid sort of the 4 AR meta that we were seeing a lot last weekend. I really think as a community, you guys kind of took the W on this one. Look, the pro players in these GAs now are very much susceptible to a lot of public pressure. If you guys see them taking the wrong path in terms of GAs, again, the sniper is a great example in both this game and the last game. If you guys go to Twitter, you make it known, the personalities tweet about it. These guys fall under the pressure all the time in these GAs now. So I think the public is now kind of squeezing themselves into the process, which I think is probably a good thing. I just think it's per my first point, like this whole process is dumb anyway, and we need to try and get it to a more official process. So yeah, that's really the update on sort of all the M4 stuff. I think kind of key next steps is teams are going to start scrimming with the SCAR today. So we'll see how things kind of evolve over practice today on Wednesday, Thursday, and then with matches on Friday, we'll see where everybody nets out. But obviously we got an event next week. So there may be some further GAs to like SCAR attachments to maybe get rid of like the fast SCAR class. We were talking about that last night in our little group call, and we'll see kind of the practice today if there's got to be a few more GA tweaks to got things going. But yeah, no, there's a key development. I was sort of a little bit pessimistic probably like a couple of days ago that this was going to get done before Major 1, but I think somehow SlasheR managed to make it to SlasheR World League again and kind of kickstarted this whole conversation, and the M4 finally got removed. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this whole escapade. Like if you enjoyed this content. We're going to be talking about more week 2 predictions, and I'm going to try and do a couple of like very early looks at maybe some of the awards this week as we get ready for the last week of matches before Major 1. And I will be on site at Major 1 starting on Tuesday. So be on the lookout for content live from the event next week on my YouTube channel, on my Twitch, on Twitter, etc. As always, guys, appreciate you tuning in this video, and we'll see you guys on the next one.